Couple of observations, if you will, though, after our conversation with Peter King. He is now the second one. Herm Edwards said it yesterday. Peter King said it today. Hey, this home field advantage we are all grinding over.
Right.
They're like,
Not so much, yeah. I do think that the bye is a big factor in terms of
agreed.
Whether or not you have to play 3 games or 2 games to get to the Super Bowl. But yes, the home field advantage, and I could show you the stats that would show you that it's not a huge advantage. I think it's 2/3 of the teams that have home field in the conference championship game win that game. So it's not like 80-20. It's not 90-10. It's about 65-35 in terms of the home team winning the conference championship game.
And I think most of us would argue that if the 49ers this year are a road conference championship team, again,
right?
I think we would argue that most road playoff teams are not constructed like this one.
Exactly.
This one's a little bit better than what your average road playoff team would be.
Yes, but if you look at the Niners' history of being on the road in the conference championship game, it's not great. 2021 at Inglewood, loss.
Right.
And, 2019 at home against the Packers, win.
Yeah.
Right. So
they did do it. They did do it one time in their in fact, they've done it twice.
Yep.
I think that's led to a Super Bowl.
2013 at Seattle.
Yep.
Loss.
No, where they won.
Right. And I'm going back through the history of them.
They've twice won the NFC title game on the road, and I think one time that led to a Super Bowl title. One of them is when they beat Atlanta, right, and then lost to the Ravens in the Super Bowl. And then I'm remembering an NFC title game where the Niners won back in the 80s, where they won at Soldier Field 28-3. Is that accurate? Are you looking at all of them?
I'm looking at all of them. 28-3 in Chicago, 1988-89.
There you go. And obviously they won the Super Bowl.
Last year at Philly, loss. 2021 at Inglewood, loss. 2019 at home, win. And then you go back to, as you mentioned, at Atlanta, 2012 win, which led to the aforementioned Harbaugh Bowl that they would then lose in the Super Bowl.
By the way, one other thing to throw out there, his surprise, if you will, with regard to the Niners being the dog. That one, it's interesting to me. Again, if you weren't with us yesterday, I texted with my buddy who's an odds maker, and his very quick answer, I said, why? Why are the Niners favored? He's like, because they're better. Because they're better. Because they're better on all sides of the ball. And I'm like, and he's not saying that based on like, I've watched the games and I think they're better. No. This is what the odds makers who are grinding over these numbers and have power rankings, position by position, they believe that the 49ers are the better football team essentially in every matchup, which is wild to think about, especially with the offensive line and the quarterback that the Eagles offer and home field. I still think that this, the idea of the Niners being a 3-point favorite, that's a little hot for me.
Yeah.
I get it if you want to call them 1 or 2. A full field goal, that seems a little bit crazy. But when you look at sort of where that leads this conversation, there's a couple things that pop to mind. And it's like, okay, if you're favored in Philly, well, then why should we be so scared about going to Philly again?
Exactly.
You're supposed to win.
Right. And if you're favored here and you lose, and then you wind up going back to Philly again in the last weekend of January, if you're not favored, you won't be more than a 3 or 4 point dog.
Oh, at the most.
At the most.
If they were to lose this game by 2 points, I would argue that they'd be favored again if they were to go there
Let's
again
say
next
you lose
week.
By 2 touchdowns.
Now that's different.
But I still think that the same thing is in play in terms of if you go back there. So you lose this game 31-17, whatever, a bad tip, and it's a pick, and maybe it's a kick return. Whatever happens, you lose.
Yep.
And then you go out and then you run the table or you don't. You go through the playoffs, you win. They get the home field. You beat Detroit on the road at Detroit because Detroit's the 2. Then you go to Philadelphia. You're not more than a 3-point dog, if at all.
Correct.
Is my point.
Correct. Well,
no matter what.
To further what my buddy and the world told us all yesterday, I went and found those look-ahead lines.
Look.
You ready for this? Now, obviously, this can change. The Eagles are dogs again next week.
At Dallas.
And I had a feeling they would be.
Like 1 or 2 points?
Just one,
yeah.
But they're the dog. The Eagles are underdogs at Dallas. It's not surprising to me, but I do think it furthers the point that they, not us, they are trying to drive home.
The odds makers.
The metrics are telling you something. You're allowed to ignore them, and the Eagles have obviously been metrics busters. I thought they got outplayed in Kansas City. They won. I thought they got outplayed by Buffalo. They won.
Right.
So you can look at those things and say, it doesn't matter. The Eagles are super clutch, and they have everything that it takes to handle being down in the fourth quarter, and they really do. And that's obviously not a strength for the 49ers. But the other side to it is, those of you who've been watching Eagles games this year, and you walk away going, sheesh, how the hell did they win that game?
Right.
You're right. You're right. The odds makers are seeing the same thing. You're not going to get me to use the word lucky. I'm not doing it. They went to the Super Bowl last year,
right,
and they're 10-1 this year. The word I'm going to use is good.
And what
they
is
are very
like?
good.
What is luck in terms of
Vegas?
Like
is telling
in terms
you,
of football, you're 10-1.
Right?
Are you lucky? Sure. Are you good? Yeah.
Yep.
So it's better to be lucky than to be good, is the old expression.
But
right?
Vegas is telling you, and I'm not a subscriber to the old Bill Parcells. Well, you are what your record is. Well, when the Niners were 5-3. Were they what their record was?
Absolutely.
Or did you feel like, no, that's a better football team than what that number says? I think that's what they're saying here. Vegas is saying that, yes, the Eagles have the best record, but they're not the best team.
Well, the record is a byproduct of whether or not you win or lose the game.
Correct.
And that is ultimately the most important thing in terms of how we construct the standings. But I always say this to you, Mark, if there was no scoreboard, if we treated every one of these games like a boxing match where you had 3 judges, and let's go to the judges' scorecards. Harold Lederer, what do you think? Well, I'll tell you what, Jim. And if you did that, then you'd have a different record for Philadelphia than 10-1. And the Niners, if their kicker makes a kick, well, they're 9-2 because that's a game that they lost because their kicker didn't make a kick. And if Philadelphia's kicker doesn't make a kick that he made, the kick that he made was tougher than the kick that the Niner kicker missed. So if their kicker misses a kick, and if your kicker makes a kick, you know what? It's 9-2 against 9-2. Think about that, Mark.
You just gave me PTSD because.
But I'm giving you like the full breakdown. Right. So 10-1 against 8-3. Our guy missed a 41-yarder in better conditions than their guy made a 59-yarder.
Correct.
So if our guy, makes that kick and their guy misses that kick, which is how it's supposed to go.
Correct.
Our guy is supposed to make that because it's an 87% make. Their guy that's probably a 40% make.
Oh, God, I think it's way less.
25%.
In the rain, 59-yarder? Oh, gosh, I think that's a 10% max.
Yeah.
Max.
Whatever the number is.
I think it's 6.
I think his name is Josh. 6%. It's not Max. Whatever. You can call him Max if you want.
6.2%.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, it was
he misses and Moody makes. It's 9-2 against 9-2.
9-2.
So,
yes.
So in terms of what your odds maker buddy is saying, he's right. Because the Niners point differential, yards per play, all the metrics point toward the Niners being better than the Eagles. But the Eagles have a 2-game lead because they've won 10 of 11. And yes, you play to win the game.
Sure, but not all schedules are built equally, right? And so
correct. A little Herm for yesterday.
Very good.
Friend of the show.
I think everything you said there is spot on, and that's an interesting way to look at it. And it doesn't mean a damn thing in terms of 2 things. It doesn't mean a damn thing with regard to how this season ends. And it doesn't mean a damn thing with regard to who gets home field advantage and the standings and all of that.
Right.
But it does when you're making a line. Because the line is, they're not getting, they're not getting into the emotion. The emotion of the whole thing, like if you're part of one of the fan bases, you start peacocking, right? The Eagles, I guarantee it. They think we're the underdog. You got to disrespect us. We're going to go out and shock the world, all the stupid things that people say at the end of the game. And the 49er fan might take it and go, okay, see, now they're telling us that we're the best team. All of these things don't actually matter. You don't want to be labeled the best team. You want to win in the end. You'd much rather just be the last team standing.
Win in February.
Yeah, so none of that matters, but it does when you're building a line because it removes the emotion, and that's why I find it interesting, because people who do this for billions of dollars have gone deep diving, and their answer was, oh, the Niners are clearly better than the Eagles.
Yes, but I do think that
That's wild to me.
Peter King made a good point when he joined us about why they do it and where the line is now, because they want that Eagle money. They need that Eagle money. And these odds makers keep their jobs when they get half and half action, 50% of the money on the Niners and 50% on the Eagles. That way they guarantee themselves all the juice, because half the bettors will lose, and you're going to get all the juice on the winning bets, because the winning bets, you got to pay 10% to get your win. So that's why the number has shifted the way it shifted.
Yeah, but it shifted because they placed it in a spot, in theory, that would get Eagles money, and it didn't work.
So right,
let's
so
make
it had
the Niners the favorite. And then the Niner money kept coming. And let's move it again.
But that's why it's not going to get to 3.5.
No, I agree with you completely. Yeah.